Take a smooth, easy breath with me. Allow your shoulders to relax. Feel the pew or your seat holding you up. Relax your hands. Relax your toes. Imagine more love. And in gratitude, we'll begin. We are halfway to the spring equinox. Not at the beginning of the turn, and not yet at the balance point, but in the long middle, where winter has loosened its grip, and spring has not arrived. This is not a season that rewards certainty. It doesn't offer closure. It asks us to live inside the in-between. Many of us know this feeling well. The sense of being on the way but not there yet. In the reading Kathleen shared with us, the special beauty of waiting. Are you familiar with the story of the people of Israel escaping from Egypt? In order to do so, they had to cross the Red Sea. But how? Rabbi Sandra Lawson explains it this way. In the Jewish tradition, there are midrashim, plural for the Hebrew word midrash, which are commentaries, interpretations, or stories used to flesh out a deeper meaning of the text, or to explain some of the details left out of the biblical narratives. The story of Nachshon bet Aminadav is a midrash used to explain some of the events in Torah about how the waters of the sea parted to allow the Israelites to cross. According to the story, the Israelites found themselves trapped at the edge of the sea with Pharaoh's army closing in. Moses told them that God would fight for them and save them. And to demonstrate faith, Nachshon stepped into the sea. When Nachshon was all the way up to his nose, Moses raised his staff, and the sea parted. The Israelites crossed the sea and sang the Song of the Sea to celebrate God's power and mercy. The spiritual wade in the water, Rabbi Lawson says, is a well-known Negro spiritual that was used as a code to help escaped enslaved people, especially enslaved black people in modern times, navigate to freedom. The lyrics instruct listeners to wade in the water. God's going to trouble the water. The song is also a metaphor for the courage and bravery required to escape slavery. Enslaved people had to risk their lives to cross bodies of water to reach safety. And the water provided cover so the dogs could not track their scent. Going forward in the risk Rabbi Lawson describes also reveals the possibilities. Between being stuck and being free, there is a long middle. That's where we find ourselves often. Yesterday, there was a peaceful, well-organized march to protest the presence of ICE in Portland. The march ended with police throwing flashbangs, stun grenades, and tear gas on a crowd that included many elders and children. When I urged you last week that we have more to do, this is why. We are between authoritarianism and freedom, and we must, even when it is hard, continue forward to freedom, connection, and care. Yehuda Amichai was an Israeli poet who wrote in modern times. He was one of the first people to write in conversational modern Hebrew. He died in the year 2000. And he shares this about the crossing. From a distance, everything looks like a miracle. But up close, even a miracle doesn't look like that. Even someone who crossed the Red Sea when it split saw only the sweating back of the man in front of him, and the swaying of his big thighs, or at best, a hasty glance to one side. Fish in a riot of colors inside a wall of water, as in a marine observatory behind panels of glass. The real miracles happen at the next table of a restaurant in Albuquerque. Two women sat there, one with a diagonal zipper, altogether lovely. And the other said, I kept it together and didn't cry. We've heard one ancient story about living in between, another about rescuing fire, but we can't stop there. We must help one another through this time, noticing our difficulties and becoming problem solvers for one another. You heard the story of Bridget, who was brave, who wouldn't stop until she solved what needed to be solved. Bridget found the generosity inside the possibility. Bridget also doesn't teach us how to arrive. She teaches us how to work the problem, or create an in-between space, to go where no solution seems apparent, which is exactly what life is calling you to do now. Halfway in her story, when she hears a no, that's not possible, it's not failure. It's a place of possibility. Simon Sinek, an American author and speaker, makes an important point about the heaviness of our work and how to avoid burnout. He said there's a few things that reduce burnout. The biggest one is the trust that someone has my back. Which is to say, in the story of Bridget, in the Midrash of Nachson, community and connection were important to the outcome. But thresholds are rarely comfortable places to live. Our culture often turns that tiredness into a moral lesson. If halfway is hard, you should just try harder. But that's not wisdom. That's pressure. In long relationships, people sometimes say that you must be prepared for the person you love to die 1,000 times. In all the ways they change, disappoint you, surprise you, become unfamiliar. Love does not survive because it is decided once. Love survives because it is decided, brought forward again and again. Some things cannot be decided once and for all without doing violence to real life. Your initial decision to be courageous will need to be followed up by 1,000 smaller moments toward the world we dream about. Not instant and immense progress, but sometimes less dramatic than Nachson being the first to step in the ocean. Less dramatic than Bridget fighting for the fire. It is the caterpillar sewing himself up tight for a long sleep, in which, at some point, he is unrecognizable to himself. From a crawling creature to a pod of goo. Cells called imaginal cells remember the instructions for the future, just as we remember and enact movements toward the future with one another. We let go and lean into phases of uncertainty because the empty space which we create is calling us forward. This week, it was my privilege to be on a call with Ashley Woodard Henderson, She was talking about how fascists, the authoritarian regime, bring cruelty. Then she said something that rang in my soul like a bell. And I know everything is hard, and it is a lot. And I love you. I love you. You are an amazing community, wonderful people. We have the people power to do what we need. Where it is missing, we can build it. And Ashley said this. She said, let us be the consequence. So, no matter what happens, we're clear about where we're headed. We are headed toward freedom. Just as Bridget was clear in that cave when she was rescuing the fire. We're headed toward freedom, and we are the consequence. Poetry helps us imagine practicing this truth without turning it into a rule. Jack Gilbert writes, everyone forgets that Icarus also flew. It's the same when love comes to an end or the marriage fails and people say that they knew it was a mistake, that everybody said it would never work, that she was old enough to know better. But anything worth doing is worth doing badly. Like being there by that summer ocean on the other side of the island while love was fading out of her, the stars burning so extravagantly, those nights that anyone could tell you they would never last. Every morning she was asleep in my bed like a visitation, the gentleness in her like an antelope standing in the dawn mist. Every afternoon I watched her coming back through the hot stony field after swimming, the sea light behind her and the huge sky on the other side of that. Listen to her while we ate lunch. How can they say that the marriage failed? Like people who came back from Provence, when it was Provence, and said it was pretty but the food was greasy. I believe Icarus was not failing as he fell, but just coming to the end of his triumph. The poet writes, everyone forgets that Icarus also flew. We tell the story backward. We start with the fall and call the whole thing a mistake. But Gilbert asks us to look again. What if falling does not erase flying? What if coming to the end of something is not the same as having failed? Gilbert refuses to measure meaning only by the result. In his telling, the marriage does not fail because it ends, just as the flight does not fail because it concludes. The triumph is not permanent elevation. The triumph is having risen at all. This matters because so many of us have been taught to narrate our lives as cautionary tales the moment something changes shape. We rewrite joy as naivete. We rename courage foolishness. We say, I shouldn't have tried, when what we really mean is, I was brave enough to love something that could not last. Gilbert insists that the beauty was real because it was temporary, not in spite of it. The stars burned extravagantly, he says, not efficiently, not sustainably, but magnificently. This is the refusal of a theology that only blesses what can be maintained indefinitely. It is permission to honor what is true for a season, what gave light when it could, what taught us something about our capacity for wonder. Icarus does not need to be rescued from his own story. He needs us to tell it honestly, not as a warning against risk, but as a witness to the fact that some forms of meaning are complete when they end. This helps us because the nature of transition is impermanence, and we can turn that into our strength by knowing where we are going, and who we are bringing with us. We are going toward freedom. The enemies of freedom try to erase diversity, equity, and inclusion because they don't want us to bring everybody with us. In George Orwell's book, Animal Farm, the animals begin their revolution with ideals of equality and cooperation. But by the end, they spread the propaganda that all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others. This phrase appears in chapter 10, representing the culmination of the pig's corruption and the betrayal of the original revolutionary ideas of equality. It is the final hypocritical and paradoxical commandment painted on the barn after the pigs begin acting like humans. You have the power to build the airplane as you fly. What do you even mean, Soto? I mean that we do not have the freedom we seek, but we know it. We were born for it, and so was everyone else. Even the ICE agent, even the bureaucrat pushing poisonous, inhumane policy that they position as innocent. This is where halfway stops being a problem to solve and becomes something that we can understand. In science, a half-life is not the moment something fails. It is the amount of time it takes half of something to change or decay. After one half-life, half remains. I could continue to explain that, but what I need you to know is that change is not the end. Halfway is not nothing. It is still something present, still active, still real, just changing. The usefulness of half-life is that it gives us a way to stay present without demanding resolution. We are going to have to hold on for freedom. In that way, everything we know about the in-between space becomes a spiritual discipline for seasons like this one. It teaches us how to keep faith not by leaping to the end, but by staying with what is alive in the middle. That's you. You're alive. You have questions, you have grief, but you have community. And we can take care of each other. And that kind of endurance deserves spiritual honor. Go ahead, straighten your spine, look around, wave at your neighbor. Yeah. Hi, hello. That's your person. All right? We're going to do a blessing for the in-between. Relax your hands in your lap. Take an easy breath. This is for those who are halfway through grief, halfway through healing, halfway through staying, halfway through leaving, halfway toward freedom. For those who are being tired of being told that clarity is the same as faith. We do not need to struggle our way to certainty. We do not need to force the season to turn faster than it will. Spring will come. The light will keep returning. Until then, may we honor the work of staying. May we trust the worth of what we have carried with us. And may we remember, when the story feels unfinished, that being halfway there is not a lack of faith, but one of its most honest forms. Go ahead, hold the blessing in your heart, in your hand, and offer it to the person next to you. If there's no one next to you, just meet someone's eyes and offer them that blessing as well. The blessing for halfway there. We have it for one another. All right. Let's go ahead and move into our closing hymn.